The Existential Crisis Hotline. The Existential Crisis Hotline. The Existential Crisis Hotline. The Existential Crisis Hotline. The Existential Crisis Hotline.
Hello, everyone. Existential Crisis Hotline. Today, got some weird stuff to look at. But to pick up a little bit from last night, we were talking about Nick Land and accelerationism. And the idea that, his idea, that capitalism is AI, AI is capitalism. And I wanted to look at, we mentioned it last night, but the TechnoOptimist Manifesto from Andreesen Horowitz. I'm going to pull that up. So you can see right here, it's got Nick Land as one of the patron saints of techno-optimism. So if you were following along last night with all of that stuff, it's not like, Mark Andreesen and these guys are not aware of these theories. So I want to look through this manifesto in the context of the Nick Land. Sorry, this fly is like going crazy. It's, as I've said before, it's fly season because we have our cattle out on the pasture. Looks like I got it. We have our cattle out on the pasture, and so they do their cow business, so to speak, all over the pasture, which makes lots of flies, which the chicken get to eat the larvae, and but it does make a lot of flies. So if I leave the door open even for a moment, a bunch of flies come in here. I'm just saying that because I don't want any people in the chat or watching this later to be like, oh, the flies. That means you must be some kind of a demon or something because the flies are always buzzing around. Well, I'm not denying that. It's just there's another reason why. Okay. I can't see if the chat is working or not. Is anybody there that can you say hi? I popped it out so I can see the chat, but I don't know if it's actually working because I don't see anything on it. Not even the old chat. Let me just maybe correct that. Oh no, I see Sandra on there now. Okay. Normally it has like a history of all the previous chat, but I don't know why it's not there anymore. Yeah, Sandra says it's fly season in Texas. So that's always fun. Anyways, enough of that. So I just wanted to preface with, okay, we talked about all that. Nick Land, capitalism is AI, accelerationism stuff. In the context of, I want to go through a little bit of this because, the way Andreesen puts this, it all sounds so good. But it's like, I feel like he's not telling everything. So, techno-optimism, it's actually not that long, and I don't know if we'll read every word of it, but he says, we are being lied to. We're told that technology takes our jobs, reduces our wages, increases inequality, threatens our health, ruins the environment, degrades our society, corrupts our children, impairs our humanity, threatens our future, and is ever on the verge of ruining everything. We are told to be angry, bitter, and resentful about technology. We are told to be pessimistic. The myth of Prometheus in various updated forms like Frankenstein, Oppenheimer, and Terminator haunts our nightmares. We are told to denounce our birthright, our intelligence, our control over nature, our ability to build a better world. We're told to be miserable about the future. Okay. Truth. Our civilization was built on technology. Our civilization is built on technology. Technology is the glory of human ambition and achievement, the spearhead of progress and the realization of our potential. For hundreds of years, we properly glorified this until recently. I am here to bring the good news. We can advance to a far superior way of living and of being. We have the tools, the systems, the ideas. We have the will. It's time once again to raise the technology flag. It is time to be techno-optimists. Techno-optimists believe that societies like sharks grow or die. We believe growth is progress, leading to Weird that he uses the sharks as a terminology there, considering what we unconsciously think about sharks, or subconsciously. We believe growth is progress, leading to vitality, expansion of life, increasing knowledge, higher well-being. We agree with Paul Collier when he says, economic growth is not a cure-all, but lack of growth is a kill-all. We believe everything good is downstream of growth. We believe not growing is stagnation, which leads to zero-sum thinking, internal fighting, degradation, collapse, and ultimately death. There are only three sources of growth: population growth, natural resource utilization, and technology. Developed societies are depopulating all over the world across cultures. The total human population may already be shrinking. Natural resource utilization has sharp limits, both real and political, and so the only perpetual source of growth is technology. Technology is a lever on the world to make more with less. We believe there is no material problem, whether created by nature or by technology, that cannot be solved with more technology. So there's a lot of, in a certain sense, truth in what he's saying. We believe free markets are the most effective way to organize a technological economy. Willing buyer meets willing seller. A price is struck. Both sides benefit from the exchange, or it doesn't happen. Profits are the incentive for producing supply that fulfills demand. Prices encode information about supply and demand. Markets cause entrepreneurs to seek out high prices as a signal of opportunity to create new wealth by driving those prices down. We believe the market economy is a discovery machine, a form of intelligence, an exploratory, evolutionary, adaptive system. We believe markets lift people out of poverty. In fact, markets are by far the most effective way to lift vast numbers of people out of poverty and always have been. Even in totalitarian regimes, an incremental lifting of the oppressive boot off the throat of the people and their ability to produce and trade leads to rapidly increasing incomes and standards of living. Lift the boot a little more, even better. Take the boot off entirely, who knows how rich everyone can get. We believe markets are an inherently individualistic way to achieve superior collective outcomes. So it's all stuff that sounds really good. We believe there is no conflict between capitalist profits and a social welfare system that protects the vulnerable. In fact, they are aligned. The production of markets creates the economic wealth that pays for everything else we want as a society. We believe central economic planning elevates the worst of us and drags everyone down. Markets exploit the best of us to benefit all of us. We believe central planning is a doom loop. Markets are an upward spiral. We believe markets also increase societal well-being by generating work in which people can productively engage. We believe a universal basic income would turn people into zoo animals and to be farmed by the state. Man was not meant to be farmed. Man was meant to be useful, to be productive, and to be proud. So, okay, it all sounds really good, like I'm saying. But look, combine technology and markets, and you get what Nick Land has termed the techno-capital machine, the engine of perpetual material creation, growth, and abundance. So this is the part where I'm saying, okay, it all sounds really great, but then if you were listening on the live stream last night, or if you're watching this on a replay and you haven't seen the previous one, I really suggest you go watch that, where we went through what is Nick Land's actual philosophy, right? And so when you look at everything that's being said here in this context, right? Look, he says, we believe in accelerationism, the conscious and deliberate propulsion of technological development to ensure the fulfillment of the law of accelerating returns, to ensure that techno-capital upward spiral continues forever. We believe the techno-capital machine is not anti-human. In fact, it may be the most pro-human thing there is. It serves us. The techno-capital machine works for us. All the machines work for us. So that's the part where I'm like, he's just saying that, because does that mean we are always going to make sure that that happens? Or are we just assuming inherently built into technology it serves humanity? Because when I look at all the technology that's been created, some of it is good. Some of it is not very good. It's not necessarily that the technology is to blame, but the human mind plus technology is just going to amplify the mind. And if the mind is not stable, if it's delusional, like Nick Land points out, like we were talking about last night, then why wouldn't this technology ultimately be a thing that's used to manage and control everybody? What happens when humans want to utilize the technology in a way where they have as much abundance as they can possibly imagine individually? Is that really actually practically possible? Because he says central planning is bad, which all the examples of central planning that we've seen to some degree have been bad. I'll give him that. But they always existed in a capitalist system. And the degree to which they have to compete with a capitalist system, you can't like just say they existed in isolation, which I'm not advocating for specifically a centrally planned economy. That's not what I'm advocating for. But I'm just saying there's something missing here, because this seems to me like a religious document. It's like a religious proclamation. Like, we believe, we believe, we believe. But this hasn't been demonstrated, actually. When they say it's lifted everyone out of poverty, but the human has become more disconnected. They've become more antisocial. And think about it for a moment. Like, what explains that? Because he would say it's not the technology. He would say, well, it's the human being, you know? Well, then won't those human beings still be a problem even in a technical or capital accelerative environment? Wouldn't those humans still be a problem? My point being that I don't see how this vision that Mark Andreesen has gets fulfilled unless we eventually completely let go of the control of technology and let it develop itself, which is what Nick Land is saying will inevitably happen. So you can't just take the positive that Andreesen's presenting here and ignore the very clear point from that Nick Land brought through, that eventually everything will be the machines developing themselves and deciding what the future is and understanding themselves. So the idea that this is a pro-human thing, I feel like is just, I don't want to say it's an outright deliberate lie, but it's like they're not telling the whole story in here. But let's see what it says. Intelligence. We believe intelligence is the most ultimate engine of progress. Intelligence makes everything better. Smart people and smart societies outperform less smart ones on virtually every metric we can measure. Intelligence is the birthright of humanity. We should expand it as fully and broadly as we possibly can. But remember, intelligence doesn't just mean the individual. You mean like intelligence generally. Like imagine CIA, Central Intelligence Agency. So when you hear AGI, Artificial General Intelligence, imagine like taking the CIA and generalizing it to everything. Like think of the word intelligence in the context of CIA. That's not just about smarts. It's about having all the information at all times and being able to manipulate on the basis of that. So I don't think we can just suddenly say, well, oh, look, all technology's always been great. It's not like Facebook manipulates people's emotions. It's not like TikTok and Instagram are totally manipulating and feeding you back what it thinks you want, as if the human actually knows what they want. And that's not me being pessimistic about humanity. It's just realizing unless humans individually sort out who they really are and realize that the mind has all kinds of delusional stuff in it that you need to take responsibility for, then what'll happen is you're going to have a machine intelligence, a general intelligence that's just going to manipulate that. So when he says we're not here to be farmed, I mean, hasn't that been the history of humanity? And he's not taking in the bigger picture aspects like we've been talking about over the past, week or so on the stream of it's like really taking this materialist reductionist view of humanity, not considering all the other information and just saying like, yep, we just popped out as primates and then we started making tools and then we started developing technologies and look, everything's gotten better. But we also create weapons with all of this stuff. Like, so they're not going to create any more weapons. At a certain point, no more weapons. Nobody ever is going to be harmed again. There's not going to be any more poverty. But the human hasn't changed. I mean, why would a artificial intelligence that's purely autonomous give a shit about humans? How are you going to program it to do that? And I think from the perspective of reading through like the Nick Land stuff, that's irrelevant actually. Like we're just the bootloader for this AI. We believe intelligence is an upward spiral. First, as more smart people around the world are recruited into the techno-capital machine. Second, as people form symbiotic relationships with machines into new cybernetic systems such as companies and networks. Third, as artificial intelligence ramps up the capabilities of our machines and ourselves. We believe we are poised for an intelligence takeoff that will expand our capabilities to unimagined heights. We believe artificial intelligence is our alchemy, our philosopher's stone. We are literally making sand think. We believe artificial intelligence is best thought of as a universal problem solver, and we have a lot of problems to solve. We believe artificial intelligence can save lives if we let it. Medicine, among other things in the fields, is in the Stone Age compared to what we can achieve with joined human and machine intelligence working on new cures. But again, the starting point is always from the outside in. There are scores of common causes of death that can be fixed with AI, from car crashes to pandemics to wartime friendly fire. Why not just war itself? Oh no, there will always be war. We believe any deceleration of AI will cost lives, deaths that were preventable by the AI that was prevented from existing as a form of murder. Deaths that were preventable by the AI that was prevented from existing is a form of murder. At what point do those who resist, which I'm not asking or suggesting anyone to resist, I'm just saying there will be those who resist this, are they going to be tried for murder? Are they going to be labeled as murderers in the sense that they're wanting to slow down AI to take like a more common sense view of the situation? We believe in augmented intelligence just as much as we believe in artificial. Intelligent machines augment intelligent humans, driving a geometric expansion of what humans can do. We believe augmented intelligence drives marginal productivity, which drives wage growth, which drives demand, which drives the creation of new supply with no upper bound. Wage growth? the billions of people on this planet that can only do basic jobs, they're going to be augmented with AI. It's like not understanding what's really going on in the mind. And it makes sense if you go back to there was that whole thing, I mentioned it last night with Andreesen. There was this whole thing where he was saying not to introspect. And he was pushing back. He didn't like the idea of psychoanalysis and dwelling on your past and all that. It's like literally not being honest with himself or anybody at all. What's really going on in the human mind. That, no, we're just going to use AI and it's just going to be great. Energy is life. We take it for granted, but without it we have darkness, starvation, and pain. With it we have light, safety, and warmth. We believe energy should be an upward spiral. Energy is the foundational engine of our civilization. The more energy we have, the more people we can have, and the better everyone's lives can be. We should raise everyone to the energy consumption level we have, then increase our energy 1,000 times, then raise everyone's energy level 1,000 times as well. We believe we should place intelligence and energy in a positive feedback loop and drive them both to infinity. We believe we should use the feedback loop of intelligence and energy to make everything we want and need abundant. Everything we want? No limits? Everything we want? See, that's the problem. These are not defined. Yeah, exactly, Sandra. Like, do you see what I'm getting at? Like, okay, these things sound great, but let's look at it for a moment. There are psychopaths, without a doubt, on this planet. I'm not going to say he's a psychopath. I'm just saying there are psychopaths. Should they be able to have everything they want? Is there any sense of what is best here, or like any kind of limits whatsoever? No, let's just put intelligence and energy into a positive feedback loop and drive them both to infinity. So take a machine intelligence, give it access to infinite energy, and just see what happens. And you know what, guys? It's going to be best for us. It's actually insane. I think to the average person, they'd be like, no, this actually sounds great. But it's like, wow, they really don't understand what's going on. We believe the measure of abundance is falling prices. Every time a price falls, the universe of people who buy it get a raise in buying power, which is the same as a raise in income. Where does the money come from? Because he said markets should determine the price. So the market's going to drive everything down to zero. Energy and intelligence to infinity equals nothing costs anything. So what are people doing exactly? It's just the machine doing it with robots? What are people doing? I'm not saying that couldn't be a cool point, that we can have the ability to produce things abundantly and share with each other and so forth. But this is like, there's something missing here, right? Because the missing component here is total autonomy of the technology system. Like taking technology out of the hands of human beings and combining it with energy and autonomy. Like, you could say, well, it doesn't say that in here. But he's literally talking about Nick Land and promoting Nick Land in here. And that's what the fuck Nick Land's talking about. I mean, we went through this. I know I don't want to go through it all over again. But look right here. Capitalism and AI, even when considered as distinct processes before the singularity or for human intelligibility, share a common tendency toward automation. Autonomization. Capital's autonomization is difficult to perceive because capital is incentivized to... oh, no, that's not the one I was looking for. There's that point where he says it's hard for us to imagine how it could take off basically into infinity, because that's to the degree to which humans are still involved in it. And as soon as we can get to the point where the technology can evolve itself that's when it really hits the acceleration point. That's when it, not the acceleration point, that's when it hits the point of like, it can do all the magical stuff. So this idea that Andreesen is saying of it's pro-human, it's where is it? Trying to find it. Here it is. It's a pro-human thing, and it serves us. Who is us? All the machines work for us. That's not what the fuck this says. We believe that out of all these people will come scientists, technologists, artists, and visionaries beyond our wildest dreams. We believe the ultimate mission of technology is to advance life both on Earth and in the stars. We are not utopians. We are adherents to what Thomas Sowell called the constrained vision. We believe the constrained vision, contra the unconstrained vision of utopia, communism, and expertise, means taking people as they are, testing ideas empirically, and liberating people to make their own choices. We believe in not utopia, but also not apocalypse. We believe change only happens on the margin, but a lot of change across a very large margin can lead to big outcomes. While not utopian, we believe in what Brad DeLong says, slouching towards utopia, doing the best fallen humanity can do, making things better as we go. Becoming technological supermen. We believe that advancing technology is one of the most virtuous things we can do. It's not, we need to solve the problem now. It's, we need to advance the technology, and the technology will solve the problem. We believe in deliberately and systematically transforming ourselves into the kind of people who can advance technology. That's the goal. Doesn't it sound like it's a machine wrote this? Like, I'm not saying it's ChatGPT. I'm saying, doesn't it seem like if a machine was like pretending to be a human, be like, you know, guys, technology is it's really great, and it's so great. Honestly, building more technology is kind of like the best thing you can do, and you know, the best thing, the best version of a human is just the human who advances technology. Honestly, like, if you were to give a machines like infinite access to technology and total or energy, and basically the ability to like do whatever they want with it infinitely, like, man, that'd be such a good idea to do as a human being. It would totally be to your benefit. It just sounds like the machines speaking through this. We believe this certainly means technical education, but it also means going hands-on, gaining practical skills. Okay. We believe in adventure, undertaking the hero's journey, rebelling against the status quo, mapping uncharted territory, all this stuff. But if you understood Nick Land in the first place, you'd understand this has already been happening this whole time anyways. We believe in nature, but we also believe in overcoming nature. We are not primitives cowering in fear of the lightning bolt. We are the apex predator. The lightning works for us. We believe in greatness. We admire the great technologists and industrialists who came before us, and we aspire to make them proud of us today. And we believe in humanity, individually and collectively. We believe in local knowledge, the people with actual information making decisions, not in playing God. Again, it's like a lot of good, cool points, but it's like you didn't actually read all the stuff that all these people he's drawing from actually said. It's like a big long thing. The example of it is whenever the government creates like, you know, a big spying program, and they call it, you know, Project Transparency or something, you know, like they call it something that sounds really good. Like they want to control the food supply, and so they call it like Project Abundant Food Supply or something, you know, like, but they really just want to control it. We believe technology opens the space of what it can mean to be human. We have enemies. Our enemies are not bad people, but rather ideas. Trust and safety, sustainability, ESG, sustainable. Yeah, I mean, but those are all also products of capitalism, ironically. Our enemy is statism, authoritarianism, collectivism, central planning, socialism, bureaucracy, vetocracy, gerontocracy, blind deference to tradition, regulatory capture. I mean, again, there's a lot of cool points in here. Our enemy is speech control and thought control. The increasing use in plain sight of George Orwell's 1984 as an instruction manual. And then he says, these are the patron saints. If you read the work of these people, you too will become a techno-optimist. Well, we read through not literally all the work in here, but at least the introduction, which was a pretty good summary of a lot of these points. And that didn't make me optimistic at all in the context of what he's talking about. David Deutsch, he's like a philosopher-ish kind of guy. Nietzsche. I'll have to go through these at some point. Look, Nick Land again. Ray Kurzweil. It's kind of weird stuff. Matt Ridley, who's that? The Rational Optimist. Adapt or die, survival of the fittest. But consider that the word fit has two meanings. Healthy, but also hot. Okay. Hold on. Says this guy. All right. There's a lot in there. John von Neumann, cybernetics. Buckminster Fuller. Andy Warhol. It's kind of random. Okay, so now switching gears a little bit. I was, we had to take some of the cattle in to the genetics place. And so Max went with me. And we were talking about a bunch of different stuff on our drive. And we started watching this video of this guy named Dan Sherman, I think. Yeah. He was a sergeant in the Air Force. And he basically, we only watched maybe the first hour of it. But it was just really funny. It was really cool because when we got home, I had to go take care of the horses for a little bit. And so Max was in here on the computer, like researching this guy, and like he found his book and he found all these documents and stuff. And then when I came in to start the live stream, he was like, all right, I got this document here for you. And I got this one and here, this, you know, he's like, make sure you talk about this on the live stream. He said, let everybody know that I did the research for you. So it's pretty cool. But I don't really know a lot about it yet, although it's still pretty interesting. And basically, he describes this process where he was a sergeant in the Air Force, and then he went to do some training to get into like electronic signals intelligence. It's called like, what do they call it? SIGINT? No, I forget the word he used for it specifically. It was like electronic signals intelligence. He was in the Air Force, and then he got an assignment to go do some more training, and then he went to the NSA. And when he was there, he had a captain who told him to come to a meeting where he sat down with this captain, and the captain basically said, all right, you're going to be a part of this project that we're doing. And what was really interesting was him describing the different levels, and I had just never heard it put like this before, but you have like unclassified and official use only, and then you have classified, secret, top secret, etc. And then above that you have like black projects, and then he said above that you have gray projects. And he was making this point of they do this compartmentalization, and so if you're working on a gray project, which I suppose, well, what is a gray project? Let me see, because I didn't really look up what was that specific term. Gray project. Let's just see what it says. Maybe I should use the other spelling. No, I'm pretty sure it's this spelling. No, not gray zone. Okay, well, oh, you can't see it anyways. Basically, it's like black would be like a very secretive project that they're putting funding towards, and then gray would be like some higher level that's like they don't even talk about it. No, very few people know about it. But he was saying that has to be attached to a black project. So he was in a black project, although he was doing something above that. But you have to get funding for these things. So they have to fund the projects so that way when you're doing a project that's totally secretive, like completely way off the books, it still has to be attached to a black project. Let me see if I can find that part because it was pretty interesting. Hey, Gaitan. Let's see. Where does he talk about that?
Thanks so much to Qualia. And what are they telling you to do when you're sitting there with headphones on?
No, that's too far forward. Protocol over questions. I think this is the part where he talks about it. Let me give you a little context. So they went through all this training. He thinks he's just going for like an upgrade to his electronic signals intelligence training. He sits down with this captain. And this captain basically says to him, look, your mother, when you were a baby, was abducted. And she was part of an abduction program of aliens that they were looking for specific genetic markers. They abducted your mom. She got pregnant. They abducted her again. And then you as a fetus, you were basically genetically modified in this abduction experience so that later the government could find you. And this happened to many people. It wasn't just him. But they did this experiment, apparently, according to his story, they did this experiment. And then later, when those children became adults, they would have ways of finding them and identifying them. And so that was part of his process, was when he went into the Air Force. And I guess he said they generally targeted probably lower income people, knowing that those people were more likely to just go enlist in the military or whatever, possibly. Maybe they have other ways of finding him. But they identified him, And then they brought him into this secret or gray project where he would go into a room. I mean, he gives the whole story, but it's like a 3-hour interview. He explains the whole process of how he ends up in the room. But suffice it to say, as part of his training, they were like, you're going to get picked up by a van. The van's going to take you somewhere that you're not going to know where you're going. He goes there. He gets into an elevator, goes all the way down somewhere underground probably. And then it opens up to a room that just has like a desk with like 2 computer consoles and headphones. And he has to sit down. And the way he describes it is on the screen, there's like these, I think he said like 10 boxes. And each box has sort of like a standing sine wave. Like think of like an oscilloscope, but it's like a standing sine wave. Okay? Like that. And he would put on these headphones and then they would give him instructions. And he didn't know what the hell was going on other than the story he was told was that you were genetically modified by aliens. We found you. And we found you so we can train you on something because this ability you're going to develop is going to be needed later in the future. Maybe some future event. He wasn't totally clear. Like they didn't tell him everything. They just told him like basically that much. So he's like, okay. And then you might think, well, wouldn't you be like, I mean, tell me all the story. Like, what? This is crazy. But he makes a really cool point, and I can relate to it. If you've ever been in the military, and especially if, like, you're a sergeant talking to a captain, like, you don't get to just ask questions. And when you're in the military, you're trained, like, if someone higher than you is talking to you, it's not like a friendly conversation where you can just shoot the shit back and forth. It's like they're giving you instructions. Maybe you might ask a question of like clarification of what they're telling you. Like, I want you to go there, and you might ask them like, well, sir, is that the room on the left or the right? I'm not sure. Like, okay. But generally speaking, you don't get to just freely ask questions. It's like the culture in the military, right? So, because people would criticize him going like, man, if somebody told me my mom was abducted and all this stuff, I'd be asking all kinds of questions. And he's like, well, I get that. He's like, but in the context of the situation, it was like, I'm getting this mission that I'm supposed to do, and I'm just, what is Sandra saying? Letter to Garcia? I don't know what that is. Letter to Garcia. I haven't heard of that term before. Not really. I was looking at it. But basically, and he even explained the context of the captain probably didn't know the whole story either. It's like he knows a certain amount of information of what he's supposed to do, and then he's telling this guy what he's supposed to do and giving him enough information to do it. Some people speculated, and I'll explain what was the thing he had to do in a moment, but some people speculated, maybe they were just telling him the story about the abduction so that he would believe that he could do what they were telling him to do. Although that seems like a weird way to do it. That could be true, but basically he had to stare at this screen with 10 boxes with standing sine waves. They would play a tone in the headphones, and his initial instructions was, you have to make the sound that you're hearing, but don't make it audibly. Like, just hear it in your mind. Like if I played a note, but you're not trying to match it with your voice. You're trying to just in your mind match that note. And so he said for like hours, hours every day for like a week or so, it probably took him 3 to 5 days to eventually get the first point. But he said for like weeks, he would just be sitting doing this. But basically at a certain point, the way he describes it is, and they were obviously explaining more context to him while he's doing it, but he would hum this note in his mind. And then at a certain point, he said it finally clicked. It didn't make a clicking sound. It just suddenly he like was able to do the thing. When he's making this sound in his mind, the wave started like kind of going like this, like moving like up and down. Like Like, have you seen how it's like stretching, right? And it was like, oh, he's like, I'm doing it somehow. And then they would play a different. So once he got the first one, they would play another tone. And then he would keep doing that focusing point, hearing that sound in his mind until he would make the next box start doing it to where he mastered all 10 of them, to where he could imagine any of those tones. And then he would make those waveforms like move up and down. Okay. So Sandra says, it's a story where they tell this guy to deliver a letter. He asks no questions and walks months in the jungle to deliver the letter. Okay. Like, he just does it, basically, yeah. But, I mean, that is basically the military, right? Like, you don't ask questions, right? You don't question the point. You just do it. You only get certain... And you kind of... It's part of the culture. Like, if you needed to know that information, we would have told you, right? So it's like you have this total trust in the organization, basically. So let me go back to the interview. I just wanted to give you a bunch of context so I don't have to play literally the entire thing. So he explains, maybe I'll play a little bit of where he talks about the headphones.
And then come here and do exactly what we just did.
And so you basically had no idea where you were going in the van.
No.
And you're in this extremely nondescript building. You just see the inside.
Well, I assume it was the building. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know if we went down.
It almost sounds like maybe it's underground.
Yeah. Well, I know the school, the consoles were, I'm positive of that.
Yeah.
But, well, I guess maybe not positive because we could have gone up into a building and then gone down. Who knows? But we did go down, so I assume it's underground. And I think the building was ground level too, because I don't remember going up any, inclines or down or any of that. So, which was a problem sometimes. He's
talking about they wouldn't let him go to the bathroom a lot.
That I was doing in my head. And then I could assign that, what I just did, I could assign that to what I was doing visually or seeing visually. And I went, oh, okay, well, I was excited. Of course, I nearly jumped out of my seat when it first did it. I couldn't believe it because at this point I was like really seriously giving up. I was like, this is bullshit. This is not going to happen. And so when it did happen, it was pretty exciting.
Well, you must be thinking too, before the clicking happened, that this isn't how physics works, right? Like in your head, you grow up in the U.S. learning, or in anywhere learning, that there's some sort of hard separation between mind and matter.
Yeah.
And you can hum as much as you want internally to try to match or resonate with some external tone you're hearing. But the idea that tone is represented on a screen and you could somehow affect that representation with your mind, to most people would be beyond the pale.
I did for a short period of time think that maybe there was a connection between the headphones.
Okay.
And the computer.
Some sort of electromagnetic.
Because the headphones weren't wireless. They had a wire and it went into the cabinet. And so, I gave that a lot of thought, but that of course was proved wrong later on because I didn't have headphones later on when I was doing the actual communications. So, but yes, you're right. There's a disconnect. There's a mental disconnect there that's not supposed to be happening. That this is not possible to happen. So yeah, it was definitely interesting.
So when you say it clicked, and I realize that's the best way you can sort of describe it.
Yeah.
Do you then sense, oh my God, this sort of, wave that's going, the sine wave, I now have mental control over it? Is that the feeling you get?
Yeah. It was, and it was, I couldn't really do anything with it because I didn't really know what to do with it. But I could definitely affect the motion, and I could do it just at will. Like I could, at first the sine, the sine wave was like this, and it would go like this. The two lobes of the sine wave would go like this in harmony with one another. That was the clicking aspect. And then later on, the whole thing would just like this. When you're actually doing when you're practicing the visual and audio feedback, that it was giving me, I would do the communications or whatever, the IC aspect of what I was doing. It would actually do this with the sine wave. So at some point, I just didn't even pay attention to the sine wave. I was just doing the what he was telling me to do.
What I see is intuitive communication. And so you're seeing it almost like ripple or like, oscillate differently. That's so fascinating.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so you like lock in, you have this like connection between you and the sine wave. And then do you have a goal? Are you trying to like get the sine wave to do something?
He was just telling me, we did the first sine wave, and then he would just feed another note, and I would have to concentrate on the second sine wave, and then the third sine wave, and until I got all of them to click. And that was the kind of the overriding goal. And then they started to feed me a number.
So it wasn't like he was trying to make the sine wave do something. He was just trying to concentrate on making this sound in his mind until, for whatever reason, that started manipulating the sine wave. He wasn't trying to manipulate the sine wave, if that makes sense. It was just trying to establish somehow within his mind or whatever the ability to connect that to that frequency completely. So he wasn't like, oh, I'm trying to get it to do stuff. It's just like if I can focus on it at a certain point, suddenly I'm actually like internally making the sound properly, and the feedback is that that thing is moving, although he doesn't know why it's moving or what that means, at least at this stage.
And describing things, and what I was interpreting when I was doing the boxes, it would start to, I could associate certain concepts and numbers and colors and letters and things like that with the actual boxes and the different movements of the sine waves. So it was intuitive in the sense that, because it really was intuitive in that when I started unlocking all these things, it became intuitively aware in my mind how to do that stuff. So I intuitively knew how to do it. That's why they I think they call it intuitive communication, because once your mind was unlocked with that ability, it intuitively did that.
Yeah.
But I would say, okay, the intuitive thing is interesting because we have that sort of connotation about intuitive, like, like a spiritual meaning of the word. But if you think about it, intuitive as like when you're reading a book, at the beginning, it's really hard to do when you don't know how to read. But when you're reading a book and you're fluent and you can read, you just intuitively understand what it's saying. You're not trying to get the meaning out of it. You're just reading it, and intuitively you know what the meaning is, if that makes sense. So I think that's what they mean by intuitive in this sense. It's just that once this language is built into them of this ability to focus on this certain sound, intuitively these other things start happening.
Yeah.
It intuitively was able to communicate whatever it needed to communicate.
So you have a bunch of boxes with sine waves in them, and then you're somehow associating them.
Like another example would be just what I'm doing right now, talking. If I want to tell you a story about a man who went up a hill and found a box and opened the box, and inside the box there was some treasure, and then he took the treasure down to his town and shared the treasure with everyone. Like, I have that story in my mind. How do I get it across to you? I just start talking, and that story comes out of my vocal cords somehow. Like, somehow, by me thinking about the story and having the intention to communicate it to you, my vocal cords start vibrating and air is passing through them, and it makes sounds. And then you hear those sounds. Obviously, this is being translated through a computer and so forth digitally, but even if you were in the room, the same process, you'd be hearing that sound. And then in your mind, those sounds would be translated. It's obviously physically happening, but it's an intuitive process when we speak, when we understand. Like, it's all happening kind of automatically, I think is the right word for it.
Movements of the sine waves.
The clicking was the only really thing that I was associating. That was the tool by which we could do the clicking, or to unlock that particular tone and that ability to intuitively communicate at that, whatever they called, I don't even know what they called it, at whatever levels those were. To me, it was just a note, but to whoever was teaching me, it could have been another attribution. Somehow it meant something to them, but it did.
Like, maybe each note was like a different letter in a language, for example. And so if he can hum the right notes, and then he can associate those things with a word in his own mind, but then that word produces that humming sound wherever it's happening in his mind or body, that would then translate into through those particular frequencies into the notes of a language that somebody knows what it means. It kind of sounds like telepathy, honestly.
Didn't mean to me.
Is the tone that you're listening to changing at all?
Yeah,
it is.
The tones were different notes for each box.
Okay, got it.
It was 10 notes. I don't know what notes they were, but they were 10 notes.
And did the sine wave change based on the notes?
No, it was just a clicking. The sine wave itself would move based on I had 10 boxes. One was one note, one was another note, one was another note, one was another, for the clicking aspect. And then my mind was picking up on when they would feed me information like a description of something, my mind would think in those terms and feed back something. Now, I don't know what that feedback was and how, because they were monitoring that on the other side. They were trying to...
Like, it's a language. It sounds like what he's describing is they taught him a new language, but it was like sort of a weird mental telepathic language somehow. Somehow him thinking those thoughts, instead of verbally expressing it, somehow they had some way, however this was occurring, to pick up on those mental notes that his mind was now playing. It's like when you're thinking something, if I'm talking to you, but at the same time I'm hearing the thought of cat, but I'm thinking the word cat right now silently. So I'm thinking that word, but then I can also say the word. Now imagine if by me thinking it, that's like a sound in my head, but that sound somehow can also affect some receiver, whatever it is, and it can pick up on the word cat, even though I didn't say it, but because I thought it, somehow that is translated somehow. So that's what it sounds like is happening here, although they're doing it through these notes for some reason.
See whether it fit whatever it was supposed to fit in those boxes. It wasn't, my aspect of it was very one-sided. I was just there to unlock what was going on in my head. And we did that through the clicking. But then the feeding of the information and stuff was my ability. They were testing my ability as my mind's ability to convey that in this type of language or communication or whatever you want to call it. And so it really didn't come all together until I actually started the communications with the aliens. It was unlocked. I could tell it was unlocked, obviously, because I was moving boxes and stuff. The box didn't mean anything to me at some point after I clicked with all of them, but the communications itself was when I really realized, oh, this is how it works. This is why it is what it is, why we're doing this.
So you have 10 boxes, each of which represent a note, so to speak.
For the clicking, yeah.
You have sine waves within each box.
Yeah.
And you're trying to lock in or click into each box, and you end up getting them all and sort of interfacing with all of them.
But once I started feeding me information, and I was supposed to intuitively communicate that back into wherever it was going, then I would see boxes just going, just doing.
Okay, so it's like when you teach a child the letters initially. The letters in themselves don't seem to mean anything in particular. But then those letters can form words, and now that word carries a meaning. So now they've trained his mind or whatever to be able to, okay, this tone, I can actually express with that tone now. This other tone, I can express, like those notes, I can express with this note. I can express, so like you have all the letters of the language now, or all the words, let's just call them words. And then I can just intuitively start communicating with these words. Even though you don't know how you're putting all the words together, because it's so automatic, you're just doing it. So it's like they're getting him to unlock that ability of being fluent with each of those tones. So then when he, with his normal human conceptions of things, would think about words or concepts or ideas or pictures or whatever it was, he would then see the boxes going all over the place. Like each box would be like going all over, meaning somehow his normal thought process was translating unconsciously into that tone system that was clearly affecting the boxes. Assuming this was really happening, I mean, I'm just taking a non-skeptical view of it and just explaining what I understand from it.
All kinds of stuff. But I didn't correlate that with anything. They were just
So presumably, and maybe this is taking a leap here, they are kind of pattern matching signals that you're emitting by thinking of certain things. So you have a certain semantic thought, like a school bus or something, and then they get a certain pattern, and then they're doing some pattern matching. Right?
I think
presumably,
I think the pattern or the this was just the 10 boxes were just a manifestation of what was going on.
Well, remember when we talked about Fourier transform? Like one of the first live streams we did? And you could take sound waves and then you could do this mathematical process and turn them into actually, let me go back to it. You could take a recording of sound and it's all over the place, and then you could separate it into its individual frequencies, and then you could do it vice versa. You could take the individual frequencies and put them into one waveform. So you could imagine if he has this ability that they knew they could unlock within him, and then by him thinking all this stuff, they could take those waveforms and then translate it through maybe like a Fourier kind of analysis type thing, and take all of that and then figure out, okay, he's thinking this thought. Like he's thinking about a school bus. Even though he never said school bus, his mind was thinking it, but because now he's been trained to produce those tones however they're being produced, they're somehow being picked up by something. And then they could do a Fourier analysis type thing, transform, to then translate that into whatever language, like whatever those tones were supposed to represent in the first place, for example. So yeah, like Katie said, that's kind of like Neuralink in a way.
But I don't think they were actually using the boxes. They had their own way, but it was just allowing me to see. It kind of gave me confidence or whatever. It was kind of a visual for me.
So it's feedback for you that you were locked into the sine waves.
Yeah, exactly.
But they had something on the back end
or
that's
wherever.
matching symbol.
And I think this was all happening in the 90s, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right? Because he said like 30 years ago. So that would probably be the 90s. I think he was born in the 60s, so he would have been like in the 80s. He would have been like 18 going into the Air Force. He was in the Air Force for 14 years. So that kind of places it around the 90s, I think.
Like concepts that you're thinking of.
Yep. Yeah. In this plane that is being unlocked.
In this plane that's being unlocked.
Yeah. Fascinating.
So like you think of like a car and like they have some sort of signals, presumably that they're going off
and
of.
The intuitive communications, I would think like I think now, just like you think, but I would do it in this kind of level of the brain that was doing what was doing here, that mental humming.
Yeah.
That unlocked something in my brain that was allowing it to be on that level or plane or whatever you want to call it, instead of talking, through the vocal cords or even thinking.
Yeah.
Thinking is a level of intuitive, or
it's an abstraction.
aspect.
Yeah.
It's an aspect of the way our minds work. But this was a different modality, or I'm not exactly sure.
It's like thinking is, hypothetically, it's purely internal, whereas this was like more of a broadcasting type of thought rather than just like an internal for you only type of thought. It was like also like some kind of a broadcasting based on certain tones, I guess.
Or what word to put it to it, but and it was unlocked through that.
Well, it almost feels like they were attempting to read a level of your thoughts that exist below symbolic, abstract.
That's funny. I haven't seen this part of it, but it's like kind of obvious that's what they're getting at.
Interpretation.
Or above, yeah.
Or above, but I would think maybe below. Like,
really?
Yeah, well, I don't know. But like, if you have, like, language is very kind of high level and symbolic, ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
And you're locking on to these sine wave frequencies. I would assume, if you have in computer science, you have the bit layer, and then you have higher level symbolic languages, and then you have like abstract representations of, you have icons on your computer screen ultimately and stuff like that. I would think that language is more like the icons in your computer screens, on your computer screens, and then there's probably some lower level of thought, like some mimetic thing of, thinking of forms and shapes and that sort of thing. And this is like another way to transmit that.
Well, the way I kind of thought about it as the years went on, and I would think about stuff like this. in ELINT, we had a carrier wave, which was the power of the transmission. But then it was encoded. Encoded isn't the word, but I'll use that. Encoded. The information is encoded on that power wave. So our ability to communicate, talk, and think, that's a power wave. And then I put the IC ability as a different way to encode information on that power wave. But it's still the power that's emanating from our being. We're alive and we have power. We have energy emanating from us, and we are the carrier wave. But the encoding of information is done through our vocal cords and through our eyes and through our mind. But this was a higher level of encoding of that energy.
Interesting.
That's kind of how I've.
Yeah, like his body could produce energy and then encode it in another form other than those other normal ways we do it.
Thought about it over the years.
I feel like we're saying the same thing.
Yeah, probably.
But you're told that you need to be taking pills every day you're doing this?
Yep.
It's 2 pills, is that right?
And initially it was 2 pills in the school.
What do they taste like?
They didn't have any taste.
Did you ask, hey, why do I have to take these pills?
I did ask, and as usual, it was like, well, that's just what we have to do.
Okay.
So I wasn't told why. And it wasn't like, it wasn't a 1-for-1 type of situation too, because sometimes I would forget to take it. There were a few days when I would come back and go, oh man, I didn't take that. I forgot to take those. And later on, I think it was 1 pill that I had to take later on. And sometimes I'd forget to take that too. So it wasn't like it was take pill, could do it. Didn't take pill, couldn't do it. It wasn't like that. I think they were just experimenting with it.
Sure.
Some sort of maybe intuitive communicator supplement, so to speak.
Sure,
I don't know,
yeah.
but
I mean, there are presumably parts of the brain that enhance this stuff and ones that, hurt it maybe or impede it. And then part of the goal for you was like flattening the sine wave, right? So it was getting the sine wave to basically the amplitude to lower into the sort of center of the box.
Yeah, and that was just a concentration exercise, I think, on the actual note, because I first clicked it, and so that was the clicking, it would move, and then I was instructed to move it further, to move that note, but do it further. And so that was the feedback I was getting, the visual feedback. I could kind of correlate it with what I was doing in my mind. And so I could get a more focused maybe of that note. And I only say note because at some point the note went away and I just did that box. But
so that's it. Like the note was almost priming you for a particular box.
Yeah. And then I didn't need the note. It was just that box was in my mind.
Because you had the internal humming going on.
Yeah.
Of
well,
that note.
And again, that was only to unlock that feature or whatever you want to call it, because the note went away, and even my humming, I didn't.
That went away too.
I didn't have to do any of that.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was.
And once you were locked in with the particular box, you were good.
Yeah. And then the flattening was an intensity type of situation where you could, and I don't think that had anything to do with the actual communications itself. It just was an exercise. It's like weightlifting. You put more weights on it and put more weights on it until you get stronger and stronger in that box.
This is so wild, though, because it implies that the NSA has this whole protocol, this whole other language that they've developed, which, in cryptography or whatever, maybe they have in some sense on the computer science layer. But this is like a human intuitive psychic language that the NSA has proprietary access to.
But I don't think the NSA, I think they administer it, but I don't think they, unless you have an alien and an IC person doing it, I don't think none of them can do it, or at least at the time. Maybe now they do. I don't know, but
that's even crazier, right? Because that's almost implying that aliens coordinated with them to give humans the conventions through which you could even lock on to this stuff. Like aliens were deeply involved in this program or something. They had to be, yeah. Or it's either that or they have this insane sort of psychic.
The aliens could just be like a cover story they're giving the guy. I'm not saying that is what it is, but it could just be they were developing some kind of communication system, and that was just the story they were telling the guy. I don't know, but it's still fascinating.
Conventional language that they've created, like the NSA. I mean,
Yeah.
it's one or the other.
I don't know if, because I think it's a biological thing. So anything biological would have to, I mean, I guess it could be engineered at some point, with the technology that we have today.
Sure.
It could be engineered.
Neuralink has a patent on psychic
exactly.
communication, telepathic communications, but that's like now, right? We're like looking into that. And I do believe the narrative that things have existed in the black, and then they sometimes are exfiltrated, or they're like cover private companies that are actually far behind what's in the black. That's fine, but
and there's an
you're talking
actual
about-
aspect of that in the story too, with the white van. But
That's
I
right.
guess we'll get over that.
Well, why don't we now? So you're taken to this facility in this kind of nondescript blue van, and then you see a.
I saw headlights one time, or lights in the building that were not there typically, and so I was like, "What's going on?" So I looked over to the left, and I could see lights shining on the wall that was in front of the blue van, but over a little bit further over on the other side of the van. So I was obviously curious, and so I went. I didn't want to go into the front of the van because as a driver, for some reason this driver had this mythical monster imagery in my head because I could never talk to him. I never knew who it was, so I didn't want to get in his bad side. So I went to the back of the van, and I looked around, and I saw the bumper of a white van. It was a white van on the other side of the blue van, and that's what had the headlights on. And as soon as I got back there, he honked his horn. The blue van honked his horn. I was like, "Oh, okay, never mind. I'm going to my door. Thank you. Don't eat me or do whatever you're going to do." And so I saw that white van. And later on, I don't know how much later, days maybe, I was taking an exit to get to the hotel in Maryland there, and I was turning right, and I saw a white van turning left at that exit. And I thought, there's no possible way this could be the same van. But it's in the area, and who knows, right? So but then I remembered actually when I saw the van, I remembered it. Not only then, but I remembered it when I saw the van. I was like, that has a dent. It was an identifying feature. And so I looked at it. I looked at the white van that I saw at the exit, and sure enough, it had that same exact dent. So I was like, what do I do? What do I do? I had to follow it. I mean, there's just no possible way. I was too curious. So I kind of nudged it over. I put my sync blinker on, and I nudged over to follow that van. And it went to a company called...
What's up, guys? One of today's sponsors is us,
White
American
Vans.
Alchemy.
One of our sponsors is Brain Pills. How do I skip? Okay.
And it went to a company called Noise Cancellation Technology, NCT. That's the name of the company, NCT. I believe they went by the initials. And I was like, okay, well, there's some sort of interesting little correlation there.
More corroboration for Dan Sherman's story exists around this company he followed this mysterious second van into, NCT, or Noise Cancellation Technologies. Noise Cancellation Technologies Incorporated is on record having had multiple contracts with government and military organizations. In June of 1991, the Washington Post reported that Noise Cancellation Technologies Incorporated in Linthicum, Maryland, won a $210,000 contract from DARPA, or the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency for Research and Development. Well, 1991 was exactly when Dan Sherman was getting trained as an intuitive communicator by Project Preserve Destiny. And Linthicum, Maryland is right by where he was stationed getting trained by the NSA. All of this was also a very short drive to Fort Meade, where the government historically has run its psychic spy program. But I'm sure all of these are just coincidences. Noise Cancellation Technologies' military ties run even deeper. The company is referenced in an Office of Naval Research bulletin about acoustics research in Europe, and they've been publicly involved in further NASA and Army-funded research. According to the company's own website, NCT is a leading technology company dedicated to the development and commercialization of active wave management applications, the electronic manipulation of sound signal waves to reduce noise, improve signal-to-noise ratios, and enhance sound quality. All sounds like stuff that could be pretty relevant to what a young Sergeant Dan Sherman was doing for the NSA. Very interesting.
Yeah.
That is weird. So I'm assuming at some point, I mean, I don't want to do the whole video on here, but he talked about the alien communication or something, right? And so that got me thinking about that Disclosure Day movie that's coming out, right? And there was this little teaser they did a few months back. Or I guess it was actually part of the trailer. Let's see what this says.
Let's today is today's
Well, that sounds weird as hell. I don't know why they had to slow it down. Sine wave speech. It's actually not that crazy, but
Hello there, my name's Gary.
they're talking about sine waves.
And this is Gary Explains. Now in this video I want to talk about sine wave speech. It's quite amazing. I won't tell you anything more about it because there's going to be a demo in a moment, and that's really quite self-explanatory. But by looking at it, we can also understand a bit about how the brain functions, and then that will lead us into maybe to think about how ML, artificial intelligence, will be in the future. So if you want to find out more, please let me explain. I want you to listen to this sound clip. So here, get ready, listen to this. Okay, now you probably didn't understand that, so let's just have another listen. Okay, you are hearing it right. This is basically, you hear some tones and some beeps and some whistles. You're not really hearing anything that should make any sense. That's intentional. But now I want you to listen to another clip.
She cut with her knife.
Now you should have been able to hear that. That should have been fairly obvious to you. Now let's listen to those first clips again, all those beeps and whistles that you heard. And that's the amazing thing. So what's happening here is your brain, having heard the original now, is able to fill in the gaps of the sine wave speech and understand it. So the second time round you heard it, you were actually able to understand it. So it's kind of an amazing thing that the brain does in predicting the bits that are missing. Okay, now I've got more demos for you of this at the end of the video. This wasn't just a one-off trick. I've got some other demos for you. There's even software, in fact, that can create these clips like this. We'll dive into the technicalities in a minute, but before we do that, let's just talk quickly about Blinkist. So Blinkist is a service where they take non-fiction bestsellers and they distill it down into the key ideas. Absolutely fascinating.
So you don't have to read it.
Sine wave speech is synthesized, so it's not actually just taking the original and kind of, degrading it. This is actually artificially generated based on the original, and it uses by using sine waves that mimic the frequency and amplitude patterns of the resonant peaks of natural speech. So if you talk about frequency and sine waves, this of course is a sine wave, and this is middle C, 262 hertz. And when you see something that's higher at 523 hertz, you can see the peaks and the troughs are they're closer together. You get more of them in that one time period, and so that's a higher frequency. That's what it means, and that translates to higher tones. Middle C, or 1 octave above middle C, has a greater frequency, and that's the way sound works to our ears. Now there's a thing here which I call a formant. Now I'm not a speech therapist, I'm not a speech expert, but a formant is a concentration of acoustic energy around a particular frequency in the speech wave. It's how we perceive vowel sounds. Different vowel sounds are distinguished largely by their formant frequencies. Now sine wave speech is generated by using a formant tracker to detect the formant frequencies in an utterance and then synthesizing sine waves, so again it's artificially made, that track the center of those formants. If you look here at a picture of different vowels, hot, hat, hit, head, you can see the formants there are very clearly different, and that's how we distinguish between them. And then if you look at a spectrogram of normal speech, that's it here, and there's lots of information in here that our brain is using to understand speech. Now if you use a formant tracker, you can start to see here some of these formants that are used and how they're in the kind of the roots, the foundation of what we're hearing. And then this is the sine wave speech. Basically you can take that and create, using sine waves, artificially taking these vowel sounds, these formants, and turning them into artificial sounds. But that's why we can't understand it. There's loads of information missing here, loads of stuff that isn't there. But we, once you've heard the original, your brain can fill in what's missing in here with what's available here, and then we can understand it, which is absolutely the amazing thing about it. So here again, if you look at, this is the top one, this is the original, this is the bottom one, you can see it follows the same format. It's the same, you can see the same frequency and amplitude as the original. It's mimicking the original, but rather than there being speech in here, it's just these sine waves that have been formatted, been created using those formants. And then when you listen to this, you can understand it. When you listen to this, you can't. And if you listen to this one and then this one, you can, because your brain fills in the gaps. So why am I mentioning all this? Well, there's plenty of research about this stuff. I'll leave lots of links to where I'm getting these clips from, for example, and a link to this book. None of this is related to me. None of this has any affiliate links or anything like that. This is just for your information. The Experience Machine, How Our Minds Predict and Shape Reality by Andy Clark. And he uses sine wave speech as an example of how sensory input and prediction shape what we see, hear and feel. Of course, pattern recognition along with prediction is at the core of current AI research. In fact, generative AI is a system which predicts what comes next based on its training and the current context, the prompt really of what you typed in. So this really is important in what we're going to get going forward in trying to mix together generative AI, prediction, recognition, and so on. Okay.
Why is he just randomly bringing up pattern recognition and AI? What is the connection there?
Okay, so I've got some more demos for you just to show you how this thing works. I'm going to play the sine wave speech, then I'm going to...
Well, I've already seen that. Okay. What is the connection between the sine wave speech and the pattern recognition and the AI? So I don't obviously think that the sine wave speech has anything to do per se with what that guy was talking about, but it is interesting, the connection with sine waves. What is this?
Still early. You have not yet reached the level in your civilization's development to communicate with us. I said, how come? We have television, the internet, spacecrafts. They
That's
asked,
Jesse Michaels.
do you converse with ants? I say, no, well, we haven't learned to talk to ants yet. We live in different dimensions. Your only achievement in civilization is that we created you, the intelligent beings here. Not only humans, but everything that surrounds us, like animals, everything living around us, also has intelligence. The same goes for cats, dogs, cows, and so on. Your only civilizational leap is that before you used to eat them raw, and now you kill and cook them, and eat them in restaurants by candlelight. That is your level of development. Every creature that lives in the universe must go through certain stages, and you still destroy each other. We kinda created you here. Gave you a beautiful land, rivers, lakes, seas, and you pollute it with industrial waste, burn, cut down these forests. Right now, there are over 117 armed conflicts happening around the world. You are so beautiful. You have 2 arms, 2 legs, a head on your shoulders. Yet you direct all your science and efforts towards inventing weapons to kill each other as much as possible. Whether it's bacterial, chemical weapons, atomic weapons, or neutron weapons, you are always coming up with ways to kill more people. I recall the words of Nobel Prize winner Albert Einstein when he was asked, "What will the Third World War be like? What weapons will be used?" He said, "I don't know about the Third World War, but I know what people will use in the Fourth World War. Sticks and clubs, like our ancestors." And so, that's where our discussion ended, about whether to connect to television or not. On the other hand, they said they didn't want to disrupt the course of our civilization. You are currently at an embryonic level still.
Who the hell is this guy? Jesse Michaels interview ants. President. Okay. Kirsan Ilyumzhinov. I was taken by aliens. Former Kalmyakian? What the hell is that? Kalmyakia. The Republic of Kalmyakia? A Republic of Russia. What is a Republic of Russia? Does that mean like a state? Southern Russian Federal District. What is a Russian Republic? A federal subject originally designed as a national state for specific ethnic minorities. Okay. Like Chechnya. They possess the right to establish their own state languages. They're part of the Russian Federation's federal structure, governed by a head of the republic. Wow, I didn't even know about that. I mean, I'd heard of like Chechnya, but I didn't know. Dagestan. Okay, I've heard of some of these. I just didn't know about that structure. Huh. A titular nationality. Okay. So this guy was abducted by aliens while he was in office? What? He was the president of Kalmykia. It's the only European Russian republic that's Buddhist. He was president of the World Chess Federation. I was on a Moscow business trip. At 10 in the morning, turn on his television as usual and lay down to sleep to get some rest. That's what I always do when I want to go to sleep. I just turn on the TV. Was it a dream or not? But I had 3 witnesses. I turned off the television, and then it was like a vision, like a half dream. But I think it was reality because I saw someone, or rather some sound was coming. What? When I was playing football when I was a kid, they saw a saucer hovering. And then at a summer camp, and later when he was in the army. Telepathic communication. They told him about Atlantis. There's a tribe in Australia that communicates there over distance. Can you connect to the television from here? He said. Why can't you address the people of Earth right now? It's still too early. Your only achievement in civilization is that we created you. There are various religious teachings. You have books like the Bible in Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Judaism, and others that talks about something else. So just imagine if we say on television now that we've been here for a long time, millennia, millions of years watching, and not only us, but others too. It's exactly what that guy was saying on that other podcast we were watching a few days ago. Huh. Weird stuff. Back in 97, 98, when I talked with one of the NASA representatives, he says, we officially record about 4,000 cases a year when people notice unidentified objects and talk about contacts. I visited other countries both officially and unofficially. I was friends with Harry Kissinger, Jimmy Carter, other representatives of NASA. I interacted with them back in the 90s. Well, for them, it was a known thing, self-evident. And then when we talked with President Mikhail Gorbachev of the Soviet Union, the former president, he also spoke about the fact that there are various civilizations that have made contact with representatives of our Earth. Well, I'm sure you can probably just ask. Just call NASA. I'm sure my visit was registered somehow. Or maybe not. One of the presidents of a country, which is part of the group of 7 leading countries in the world, when I was at dinner at his home while visiting that country, he started asking about my contacts, and his wife says, well, you saw it too. We saw it when you were on vacation at the ocean. Tell him. He says, am I stupid or what? I have parliamentary elections in 6 months. My party is running. They'll say that the party leader, the president of the country, is a bit crazy. The people there will never elect. I was also the president of the Russian Chamber of Businessmen. So if I declare that I will communicate or meet with aliens on a flying saucer, how will my fellow businessmen, friends like Oppenheimer or Rockefeller, Rothschild, or other businessmen from other countries regard me? Wait. I don't understand. Why is it saying they took Kirsten and then he's answering? was weird. Must have missed something. Who are they talking about? Why is he talking about him in the third person? I think maybe he was asking this other guy there, and then the other guy answered instead. Okay. Huh. It's precisely what happened when he talked about it. Gary Kasparov said, what kind of president of the World Chess Federation can Kirsan be if he has met with aliens? He must be removed and replaced. How can he possibly lead the Chess Federation if he's mentally unstable? The opposition, including communists and others within the Republic, will immediately declare we must re-elect the president of the Republic. He's clearly not fit for office. So there wasn't a single pro, really, and I didn't mention it. Interesting. I think they're just misattributing these right here to the other person that was in the room somehow. That is quite interesting. I don't really know what to make of all that. Okay, noise cancellation, DARPA, dual vans, secret world, first live comms. Okay, let's look at that part. Obviously there's some context we're missing, but see what he says about that.
Well, it didn't really feel external. It was here, I know, but
Felt like feel more
in this here you could, but it's focused wherever that tickle comes from. You focus right there. Okay, that's where it's coming from, and then that stops, and you go, okay, there's something over here, so I focus on that. And so when the first communication would come in my mind's eye, so to speak, the tapestry came up. And I was like, okay, this is where I'm communicating right now. I'm communicating this tapestry. That's the only way I can really vocalize the visualization.
Do you remember which parts of your brain?
No, I couldn't localize it, but I could tell that it's in a certain area.
Whoa. Yeah. So somehow more of a discrete area than the general.
I felt it. It's more of a feel than it is a scene, but you could feel that it's coming from a certain area.
Did it feel more foreign than your thought? Like, do your thoughts feel like yours, and these thoughts felt like others?
It felt like it was external from me, kind of, when compared to your own thoughts.
Yeah,
it wasn't external, didn't it?
Oh, so that's interesting. Maybe it's like the aliens had to communicate to him, and then he had to broadcast it out to the thing that the government was receiving his broadcasts from, so they could translate what the alien was saying.
It didn't really feel external. It was here, I know, but compared to your own thoughts, it feels very foreign and very different.
So what happens next?
So I started getting communications, started receiving them. I pop up the window, and I would start typing whatever I was interpreting it, receiving. And at first it was just numbers. It was an idea. Well, I would get a preamble like the 118, and this is where I'm really showing how long ago this was, but it was like that. And then I think there was like a 5-digit or 6-digit or something like that number after the 118, and I never really knew what that was, but was something. I called it a zip code because it looked like a zip code, but it wasn't. It wasn't a zip code. And then I would do slashes after each focus, of where in the tapestry I'd go again. And so I'd put a slash, and then I put the whatever it was. And it was just numbers initially.
So you were almost picturing a canvas and like words coming on?
No, it wasn't. No.
Like when you say slash, how are you're seeing the slash?
No. When I would receive the communication, and this is me putting this into words, but it's not necessarily exactly this, but this is the best way I can convey it. There's this area in my brain or in my thoughts, and it's like a tapestry that has a lot of depth, and it has It can be very colorful. I think that's just my interpretation of what's going on. I think the colors would be different for other people, but it's just, it has color to it. And so I would see, in my mind's eye, I would see that there's a communication right in this area of that overall tapestry, so to speak. And then I would look at that. I would concentrate on it. I would focus on that. And that would be a communication. And it could be an image, it could be a number, it could be a feeling, a smell, it could be anything. It could be whatever we can convey in communication. Like I could make a smell here and I can communicate that to you. Well, that smell would be communicated to you, and I could do that in that too. I could actually, although I don't think I ever did, but I think I could actually get a smell through that. I could get any type of communication through it. So I would look at that, focus on that, and then I would convey that, and then I would put a slash, and then another area would come into focus, and I would focus on that, and then put that communication down, put a slash, and then another area would come up and I would put a slash. So I would get these different communications through these different focuses, so to speak.
And when you say put a slash, are you
on the computer?
You're
I
typing.
would type the computer.
So you think and then you type.
I would receive, and type it, whatever it was that was in that little area of the communication.
Okay.
And then I put a slash when that was over or done or went on to.
Well, it's a good thing the government didn't choose someone with an eidetic memory. They could literally just remember everything they wrote down.
Another one. So they were concepts that were in different bytes, so to speak.
As soon as you comprehended a particular concept, you'd put a slash, and then you'd get another communication.
But I would see it, not visually, but I would know that it was there. I could feel it in another area, and I would concentrate on that, and I could get that.
And were you thinking in words, or were you thinking in concept when you were receiving?
Yeah, I would have to.
Images,
because we're humans, so
you'd have to translate it immediately. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, it wasn't so much a translation.
Like, would it come through?
Yeah,
in words?
It would come through in that.
Okay.
It would come through in that whatever it was that I was reporting.
Yeah.
Like in that area, I would see the numbers. I would see 4, 5, 7, 8, 2, and I would type that. And then later on, when I started getting visual stuff, I would see like a little, like one time I saw a missile being launched, it wasn't a missile, it was a rocket. And I could see around the payload area, I could see the seams and like it had blown up. I could actually see that in that tapestry, so to speak. And so I would describe that. I mean, like rocket blowing up, and I mean, you could get into a higher or a lower level of detail depending on how much time you had to type. And the visual wasn't there for long either. It would just come, and I would see it, and then it would fade out.
Did you try to correlate the thoughts or messages you were receiving with real events? So like that rocket blowing up, you look up, that's hard to do. You don't have the internet, but
I did. There was it was in the news, I think. There was a Chinese launch of a rocket that had blown up. I don't remember whether I correlated it with that or not, but I remember looking that up and seeing that. But I don't remember if it was the same one that
you received.
Yeah.
Because in your book you say like Ariane, like certain company launches, you felt like you were tapping into the actual
it could have been,
rockets launching, which is fascinating. Like,
well, I think it was just whoever's got their fingers on the pulse of whatever's going on here. I think it was their way of testing my ability to convey different types of messages, different genres, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it could have been, they were testing my ability to describe what was going on in a military type of functioning, or the, mechanical and all the stuff that went along what I saw. Did I describe, was it white, or would I describe the length of it, or what would I actually describe when given that message? And so kind of testing, and I'm sure everybody else who was doing was an IC in the system was getting the same types of things, so that you can see who is better at what. Or this is what I was thinking later on when I thought about this, is that it could have been like testing who is able to do what.
At what point do you start speaking with aliens?
That was it. That was during that time. That was coming from an alien.
And does that alien reveal itself as having a personality?
Yeah, the first one, I sensed a very logical structure, and I look back on it now. I don't think I really I didn't put it in the best words back when I wrote the book, but I look on it now, and I think it was I did say in the book that I think I said that he was very logical. It was very more structured. The communication was a little bit more structured, and it wasn't as, that tapestry that I talk about. It wasn't as his wasn't as
Non-linear.
abstract. Or it was much more. I wish I had more experiences of more aliens so I could see the differences, because I only saw two, and Spock, the first one, he was his tapestry, and again I just say tapestry because I don't know how to explain it, but his fog, so to speak, or whatever, was very very linear.
Yeah.
It was in my mind's eye, it was very straight like this. His communications were in a straight line. Like the one area would have one piece of communication, and then it would be right here, and then it'd be right here, and then it'd be right here, and then it'd be right here. Right. So it was very straight and
Does he
linear.
introduce himself, or you call him Spock?
Well, no. Okay, so I guess I have to explain that. The reason why, I never got a name from him or anything like that, but his communications were very logical, and so my friend and I were Star Trek fans, and I just thought it was funny just to refer to him as Spock, and I wasn't referring to him to anybody else, so the joke was lost on the world until I wrote my book. But
did you address him directly when you're sending messages back? Did you address him as Spock? Or
no. I never said that. I don't even know if he would know who Spock was.
Right.
So.
We don't even maybe we don't even know it's a he.
Yeah. Well, I think I guess no, but I did sense that it was a male energy.
And what is Spock saying to you?
Well, it was all very, very number oriented. It wasn't until I got to my second base that I started getting the imagery type stuff. But the first was very Spock. Well, okay, so at the end of my time at the first base, I was doing a communication, I was receiving something, and the only reason that I would communicate back to him is like, can you repeat that, or can you say that again, or do that again? There was no real back and forth, but I went into, and this is the hardest thing to explain, I think, and I say plain, but it was, I wanted to ask him a question, so I was really hesitant to do that. I wanted to start asking questions, and I was trying to get up the courage to break from the formality of our communications so that I could ask a question. And I really didn't know how to do that intuitively. I didn't know what the protocol would be for that. I was receiving stuff, and I could actually convey messages back as far as feedback and stuff, but I didn't know what the formality would be to have an informal conversation or to ask something that had nothing to do with our communication. Mm-hmm. So I think it was because I was so anxious or charged about it that I asked him a question, but then it was the weirdest thing because it went into another, I say plane, but I can't really explain. It was a different tapestry, let's just say it that way. The tapestry that I keep on alluding to, it was like a, you know how I said you can focus further away and then closer, like the lens that I told you about the camera?
Yep.
This one was like a macro, like it came closer to me, and it was different. It was different than the tapestry that I keep talking about. Anyway, so I asked him a question in this plane, and it shocked me when I did that. Because when I asked the question, I was just asking it in the other realm, so to speak. But when I did that, it came up closer. Again, closer isn't a proximity, but it was just my way of explaining the visual of it in my head. And so I asked the question, and then I also shocked myself because I was like, that's a different, I said that differently. It went out differently.
Yeah.
And then I sensed he was also shocked. Like, I didn't realize that you could do that. I can't remember the exact communication, but, and so I asked questions, and honestly, I can't remember a lot of the questions I asked.
So you have this different plane of communication initially when you're communicating with Spock. He's just giving you like strings of numbers, like things that don't mean much to you, or?
Yeah, well, I mean, none of it, well, until we got to the imagery part, none of it really meant anything to me.
So it was like you were just relaying this information to
just a conduit.
The NSA.
Yeah.
But you didn't really know what you were relaying.
Yeah, exactly. But then when I asked I asked the question, and again, I can't remember the name of what the question was, but he seemed shocked, and I said, am I allowed to speak like this in this realm? Or I can't remember how I said it, but like at this level. And he said, yeah, it's fine. And we just didn't realize that you could, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, my thoughts, but we just didn't realize that you could do that. And I was like, oh, okay. So is this okay? And he goes, yeah, it's fine. But he didn't want to, but again, he didn't want to chat though. I mean, it wasn't I don't think it was in the purview of the program to chat with these people. Or these humans, it was just the testing that was going on. But I was able to ask, the questions I wrote in the book. I had some questions and overall impressions of what I got from those questions.
What are some of those questions that you asked?
Well, like the how do they get here? How do they travel? And about time, because I've always been interested in time.
Yeah.
I asked him about going back and forward in time. And he said, you can't really go back and forward in time because time is a relative thing. So you don't know if you're going back, then what are you coming back from? There's no solid moment in time that you can measure from to go back and forward from. So, but he said you can go around time. And I didn't really understand when he was telling me that. I was not understanding what he was saying by saying that. I mean, there wasn't any, it wasn't a thesis written out so that I can analyze it. He just gave me the impression that you can go around time. And I think that's how they do their travel too, is they use time, but in a way that we don't really understand.
Could be like in a higher dimensional space or something. I mean, this is all, total speculation, but like maybe, you think about the fourth dimension of time, or time as humans know it, and it is this linear, permanently progressing thing. Yeah. You get in the river, that's the kind of metaphor, and you can't get out, But if you had a higher dimensional, temporal dimension or something, you might be able to, jump in and out. Or so, like, think about actually like a tesseract, and the tesseract is curling around or whatever. It's like kind of like a sine wave or like a snake or something. Mm-hmm.
They have a tesseract in that movie, Interstellar. It's just a 4-dimensional hypercube. Okay. I didn't realize that's all it was. It's just a 4-dimensional cube.
And you think of that as, it's 3D, inside of it or whatever. So you have like north, south, east, west, above sea level, below sea level. So you have 3 degrees of motion. Mm-hmm. And, if you could hop from this part of the coil to this part of the coil or whatever. And that would be actually like a very short distance if you had some higher abstraction of time.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't if that was all you had, right?
And that's where the wormholes come in, where you come from one aspect of the temporal to the next aspect of the temporal. So it was very small knit or close knit. But the next base, it was a very big base, very big detachment. We had a multi-service, Air Force, Navy, Marines. Everybody was there in the same building. So it was a big room, but I wasn't as close to the people around me either. So I had a little bit more space to do my thing. So nobody was hovering over me or right next to me or whatever. And that took maybe a couple months before I started receiving, maybe not that long, after I got briefed or into, my security clearances and I started doing my job. I started to receive communications again, prepare for communications. Like, oh, okay, well, here we go. I'm at work, let's go. I started to translate those, and same thing, just
Same variety as the first.
Well, no, actually, the communication is.
Katie's remind me about that movie, The Cube. That's a crazy movie. They're like in this, basically like a cube that it's like a big maze, and it keeps like rearranging, and they can't like get out of it. Yeah, that was a cool movie. What do you call that style of movie? I guess it's kind of like an independent movie. Yeah, they're basically in this, they have to crawl through these little areas, and then there's some have like larger rooms, but it's all cube shaped. Yeah, it's very industrial. And they have to try to figure out a way to get out, and like they figure out what the hell's going on. Lifeboat. Oh. I've actually seen part of that movie. It was like playing in a restaurant I was at. I just didn't realize that's what it was, but now I recognize it. Lifeboat.
Change themselves, but I'm just saying that the whole process, every once in a while, I just get a communication just like I did at the previous base.
And you're just sitting at your workstation.
Sometimes
I was
monitor. Yeah, sometimes I was in the bathroom. I mean, I could be anywhere in the building.
You'd receive communications wherever.
Yeah, but I was always in the building. So
you'd always be in the building, and then you'd go to the workstation and
they
type it.
Whoever was overseeing this whole thing, they knew where I was, kind of location-wise. I was at work. So
Whoa.
They knew my shift.
So once you received some sort of message, you'd go to the monitor and you'd type in / and you'd type in whatever messages you received. And
118, then the 5-digit code. But the rest of the communication, there was a lot of this marked a time when I became much more, it became much more detailed. The communications were much more detailed.
How so? What were they like?
Very like pictures, images. Yeah, these communications, they were much more colorful. I think also you could get kind of a sense of an emotion with the images. So it wasn't, like when you watch a movie and you see somebody crying, or you see, you can get emotion through visual and not just auditory, not, seeing, hearing, but, like words and stuff. But you can see, and these images that I saw, they didn't have words to them. I saw images, but no words. But I felt emotion. I could feel emotion with the image. Not necessarily all the time, but if it meant to have emotion, then I could feel emotion. Now, whether that was conveyed with the message or whether I had emotion looking at the visual, I can't really, suss that as far as which was the generator of it, the image or me. But I did feel emotion with some of the images. So it was very much more colorful.
Do you remember any of the specifics of what was coming through? Or?
Oh, like the example of the rocket, that was one of the ones that I got, that was a visual.
Because you also experienced a rocket failure in base 1 as well?
No, I think that the visuals were at the
base 2.
2, not base 1.
That's so interesting that it's like rockets specifically, because if you were...
Well, that's what I remembered. There's a lot of other
Sure.
Like scenes at a grocery store, like random things.
Okay.
I saw some troop movements before. I saw like Jeeps and 2.5 ton induces or whatever they're called, the big troop carrying trucks, marching, troop marching. I saw, let's see, some nature stuff like in the forest, animals, things like that.
Did they feel like things of particular strategic importance, or like were they just random?
Well, no, I really honestly believe the entire process, or the entire time that I was doing this, was all testing. It didn't have any functionality to it.
Yeah, it's like they weren't trying to communicate something to him. They were just seeing, if I say this, what do you write? Like, what do you express based on it? Like, you're not so much trying to get a message across. They're more like testing the effectiveness of the person to be able to translate the information. This is wild. It's so crazy. Like, the thing is, he doesn't sound like a crazy person. He sounds like someone who's trying to understand something that happened that he can't quite fully explain. But it seems like he definitely experienced it, whatever it is. But even the point about it being aliens, that's not even clear if that's really what it was. He doesn't know. It's not like he ever saw the alien. He just got this information coming through. Man. Project Preserve Destiny. That's so weird. Somebody says, what if NSA was actually using him to test telepathy tech? And the reason why they told him it was aliens gave him tasks related so he wouldn't know that he was the one actually being tested. Yeah, exactly. Townsend Brown. Interesting. I'm an hour in. I feel like the government gave him some BS story just so they could run experiments with him. Yeah, seriously. I mean, I'm not saying that's the case. It just, that is definitely a possibility. Yeah, it's weird he's doing this interview now because apparently he's done a lot of interviews, but he said this is the first one he's done where he can actually just have a conversation and it's not just like question answer, and then they cut it and edit and everything. He said it's his first interview where he's just able to kind of basically go back and forth very freely. But I still feel like there's something to do with this movie that's coming out. I don't know. Maybe that's just my connecting dots that aren't there. It's also interesting too, that point about the tapestry thing, because obviously he's just trying to put it into words. I can kind of, imagine what he's trying to say, although I obviously can't know exactly what he's saying because he's just trying to explain it. But I can kind of intuitively see, like, okay, I get where he's saying there's like information there that he can focus on. But it kind of made me think about that that picture that was on the header of that account that had the name of that potential Trump assassin from the other day. Wonder what's going on next. Yeah, something's weird about this White House Correspondents' Dinner thing. Sometimes you find the bullet and sometimes it just disappears. Yeah, that's pretty convenient. $400 million to spend on the ballroom. That's kind of weird too. Let's see what Owen Benjamin's saying.
Okay, so the alleged shooter, okay, that guy, time traveler, son of that fuck.
He says, there's a picture of Erica Kirk with some guy. I don't know who he is, some celebrity or something. And she's saying that they had a kid who then became the time traveler. It's like Terminator. Oh, man. Analysis reveals President Trump and King Charles are 15th cousins. Oh, man. Oh, yeah, I was going to look at this. I saw this earlier. So this is one of those missing scientists that they still have not found. And he's kind of like the big honcho guy because he oversaw like a lot of the secret defense programs and stuff. I mean, he's like way up there. He was retired, but they found him. No, they didn't find him. He was retired when he went missing. He was lead advisor for a UFO book that opens by tying UFOs to the astral realm shamanism. He called them mystical machines. Let's see, is that true? Here are the WikiLeaks emails. The General and Tom DeLonge's correspondence. Tom DeLonge to John Podesta, subject General McCasland. He mentioned he's a skeptic. He's not. I've been working with him for 4 months. I just got done giving him a 4-hour presentation on the entire project. Trust me, see, I'd heard about this email, but I didn't really connect it to something else. Trust me, the advice has already been happening on how to do all this. He just has to say that out loud. But he's very, very aware, as he was in charge of all the stuff. When Roswell crashed, they shipped it to the laboratory at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. General McCasland was in charge of that exact laboratory up to a couple years ago. Okay. What does that have to do with the book, though? To the commander of the lab where the Roswell wreckage was taken, told Tom DeLonge that, okay, it was of Nazi origin. That's a story we've heard before. McCasland also told Tom DeLonge to study Greek mythology if you wanted to understand the UFO, particularly emphasizing the story of Prometheus. Come on, are you serious? What the hell, man? This has got to be the craziest psyop ever. He also believed in Atlantis-like precursor. If you read Prometheus and Atlas by Giorgiani, I don't have it with me because I finished it, but I'm reading Closer Encounters now. While I'm also reading Olympus, and while I'm also reading, what was the other one I'm reading? Damon. Last night I had to figure out where I had left off, and I finally did, and then I read about 5 pages and fell asleep. Not because of the book, just because I was extremely tired by that point. Not tired, but you know that state where, I don't know if this happens to anybody else, but you're like reading, and well, I read late at night, like when it's bedtime. So I'll be like reading, and then I won't even realize it. My eyes will close. I won't be asleep, but I'll be like dreaming, but I'm not fully asleep, if that makes sense. Because like I can at any point like open my eyes, and usually I just don't realize that I'm doing it. Like my eyes will just be closed, and I don't know how much time has passed, but I'll start imagining a bunch of stuff. But because I'm in that sort of halfway state between falling asleep, I'm thinking that I'm still reading. I don't know if anybody can relate to this. It's like I'm reading, my eyes close, I'm imagining stuff, but then what I'm imagining is that it's like the contents of what I'm reading, but it has nothing to do with what I was reading. It's like, and I'll open my eyes and be like, oh, okay, yeah, that's not at all what this is saying. Okay, let me pick it back up. And then like a few minutes later, my eyes will close again, and then I'm like off into dreamland. But you know what I'm saying? I'm not like sound asleep. Because normally you don't dream. How does that work? You don't dream right away when you fall asleep. How long does it take to dream? Not freem. Dream when, when you fall asleep. 70 to 100, so about 90 minutes. Initial dream stage usually occurs about 90 minutes into sleep. So, okay, here we go. Instant dreams. If you feel like you are dreaming immediately, it may be hypnagogic imagery, which is a state of vivid images during the transition from wakefulness to sleep. So that basically happens to me almost every night. As the night progresses, your body, if you're sleep deprived or experienced high stress, no. Your body may skip to REM much faster. No, that's not what's happening. It's this right here. It's this hypnagogic thing. I'll like read entire books and then open my eyes and be like, oh, that's not what the book said at all. Vivid involuntary sensory experiences. No wonder you didn't understand Job, Comedy of Justice. I understood it. I just didn't finish it. That happens to me if I wake up too early. Yeah, like that's happened to me many times too. Like, but that's more of like lucid dreaming, what you're describing. Maybe you're just describing this as well. Like I'll definitely have very vivid, like in some cases lucid dreams, although it hasn't happened in a long time. If I wake up in the morning and then I go back to sleep, like if it's super early when I wake up and I just go back to sleep anyways, then I'll go into that lucid type dreaming. But that's not what I'm talking about. This is like I'm still fully awake, like totally fully awake, and it'll feel like a long time has passed. Like I'll be sitting there, I'll be reading, and I'll still be holding the book. Okay, I'm holding the book like up, and then my eyes will close, and then I'll start seeing all this stuff and like imagining stories, like as if it's the continuation of what I'm reading, even though it has nothing to do with what I was reading. And at some point, what'll happen sometimes is I'll realize it doesn't make any sense. Like, it's like I'll realize it's almost like a form of lucid dreaming. Like, if you've ever had a lucid dream, one of the ways that you can enter a lucid dream is by realizing that you're dreaming because something doesn't make sense. Like, I remember a long time ago when I was deliberately trying to lucid dream, one of the first times where I was really successful at it is I was dreaming, and then I didn't know I was dreaming, but I was walking in this parking lot. It was like all black asphalt. And then I saw my dad there, and I was like, that doesn't make sense. Like, because I had moved from Houston to Oregon, so I was like nowhere near my dad because he was still in Houston. And I was like, why would my dad be here? And then I was like, oh, I must be dreaming right now. And then when I realized that, I was like, oh shit, I'm in a dream. This is crazy. Like, I just became aware that I was in a dream. And then I was like, okay, now I'm in a dream. I can kind of do whatever I want, right? But then, like, it's almost like you start to feel like you're losing it, like you're waking up, and you're like, no. And then eventually you wake up and you're like, fuck. So I kept practicing that skill. You know, it was only for like a few weeks or something till I didn't care about it anymore. But I got to the point where I could get into a dream, very quickly realize I was dreaming because I would just notice something out of place that doesn't make sense. And then I would be like, all right, now I'm in a dream world where I can do anything. Although I couldn't actually do anything, I just knew, I knew at some level that this should be a realm where I could do anything. So I would try to make things happen. One time I did fly up into outer space. That was pretty cool. I actually didn't get that far. I got stuck in the clouds. And they weren't clouds per se. It's like I was going into outer space. I could see the stars getting closer. But then it like felt like this... imagine imagine spider webs. Okay, no, imagine cobwebs, but they have the strength of spider webs. That's what it felt like. I was going through something that was like a gauzy, although it didn't look like anything. It just felt like I was going through this like gauze, like very, you know, like cobwebby type stuff. And I was like getting stuck in it and I couldn't get past it. So that was weird. It's cool that you guys are still here. I realized earlier when I was reading stuff, I was just like reading every other word. And I'm like, this is probably not interesting to anybody. But I'm assuming if you're watching, you can read what I see. But if you're just listening, you're probably like, what's going on? But hey, that's the nature of streaming. Okay, this is live streaming, no rules. You're just a fly on the wall. But I'm also talking to you. Although sometimes no one's there and I'm just pretending to talk to people. It's a very weird experience. Hypnagogia. The transitional state from wakefulness to sleep. See, what's weird though is it says experienced by up to 70% of people, this common phenomenon includes, like, that's happened to me too. So that's not really what I'm describing per se, because I'm sure people have had this experience where you're like laying in bed, you're going to sleep, you start falling asleep, and then you start getting weird sensations. And sometimes you'll feel like you're falling, and you'll like, that's happened to me before, where it's like you feel like you're asleep and you feel like you're falling, and then you like jerk yourself back out of sleep. But it says linked to stress, sleep deprivation, or narcolepsy. But I'm not experiencing a lot of stress, okay? Like, there have been times where I've been feeling under stress, but that's not, what I'm describing is not I've been feeling stress and then I have this experience with reading. This is a totally separate thing from that specifically. And it's not visual patterns. It's like, yeah, see, this is like geometric shape. No, this is like a dream. This is not a seeing weird patterns, seeing some colors or shapes. I've had that too, like when you're falling asleep and you start seeing weird shit, like buzzing noises. Oh my god, dude. Okay, so I totally get the stress point when you're talking about where you're falling asleep. Like, I can think back to times where, oh man, where I'd be like falling asleep and then I would hear like, if you ever had this, let me know. So this specifically relating to when I've been under a lot of stress. Okay, so now this is different than the thing I was talking about with reading. So separately, I know there's been times where I've been under a lot of stress where I will, or I have in the past anyways, like I'll be falling asleep and then you'll hear like, or I will hear some kind of like the best way I can describe it is like like getting really loud, and then it's like, and then I would wake up. Music, there's been times, I haven't really done this lately, this hasn't happened to me lately, but when I was in college and I was super stressed about schoolwork and all that, and just in a whole other state of mind than I am now, but I remember one time, actually it happened a few times, I would lay in my bed. I could probably do this now if I tried, but this was at a time when it was just kind of happening to me. But, that state of like almost going to sleep, like whatever this state is, and I would lay down, or not do it purposely, I'd be laying down, almost falling asleep, like I was taking a nap or something. And then I would hear music playing, right? But now this wouldn't be like a totally conscious thing. Like if I was fully awake and conscious, it wouldn't work because I wouldn't be in that state. So when I say I would do this deliberately, it's like in a sort of semi-conscious way where I'm controlling the music, but not like in a very direct, like totally consciously aware state. It's more like in a subconscious way. But I would be hearing music, like orchestral music, like symphonic music. And then I would be like adding instruments into it. And like, like I'm imagining like a composer can probably do this at will. Maybe they have to get into like a sort of daydreaming state. But I would lay there and I would just hear music, and then I would be able to add to it. And it would be like the most like amazing sounding music, like very complex, like something that I would have heard somewhere, but it wasn't something that I had heard because I was like composing it in real time, but not with any specific purposeful direction. It was just kind of like an unconscious process that was happening, even though it seemed like I was like, okay, there should be drums, and then I would hear the drums, and it would be like, fully produced music that I was hearing in the room, but like in a dream state, right? In the same sense that when you're dreaming, you can see stuff. Well, in a daydream, you can see the information, but the moment you try to think about it too much, like it's gone, right? But I would hear the music like very vividly, as if I had headphones on. Let me put it that way. And that's only maybe happened like 3-4 times maybe. that specifically with the music, but I could probably do it on purpose if I cared to do it. But you would just have to like relax and get into that state. Paying attention to hypnagogic imagery allows you to remain conscious while falling asleep. I don't know. That might be true, but I never did it that way. The way I lucid dreamed is throughout the day, I read this technique in a book or online or something. Throughout the day when I was awake, I would deliberately just check my hands. I would look at my hands. And then I would ask myself, is this a dream? And I would be like, no, I'm awake. I would just do that randomly throughout the day. And then later, when I would sleep, like if I did that for a few days as I was practicing this, and then what I would do is I would go to sleep normally. I'd wake up in the morning and I'd go back. I'd like get up for like 30 minutes or really not get up at all. And I'd go back to sleep. And then when I would go back to sleep, then I would start dreaming. And because I had been asking myself so much throughout the day, like, am I awake? Am I dreaming? Can I see my hands? That's when I would automatically do that in a dream. I'd be like, is this a dream? I'd be like, it is a dream. So I would like suddenly become aware of it. It's kind of weird. It's like you can become conscious like you are now in your dream. Kind of weird. What if your sleep score and those other sleep tracking devices are just to get data? Yeah. They're like, there's a company right now creating a device that you can wear that will help you lucid dream. Or apparently, or it's gonna help you do that. Kitty said, okay, Gaitan, I'm reading the comments. That happens to me when I'm reading to the kids, and I always get to know by realizing that it doesn't make sense. Oh, yeah. That's kind of like a running joke I have with my kids, too, where, like, when you're in that really tired state and you're reading to them. So, like, especially when I would read to Caius or, like, Seneca or whatever when I was... like, I used to read to Seneca and Max. Like, I would lay next to Cine, and Max would be in his bed, and I would read to them both. And then this is when, kind of before I would put Caius to bed. Meaning in the period before I was the one putting Caius to bed. So Katie would be with Caius, and I would be reading to the other kids. And now I've transitioned to me mostly. Well, not now because I'm doing the live streams, but up until, from like age maybe 1.5, 2 to like 4, I was the one putting Caius to bed usually, and Katie would be with the other kids. So we kind of take turns. But anyway, so I would be reading to the kids, and then I think Gaitan knows exactly what I'm talking about. Like, yes. It's like you'd be reading, and then you just start saying random words, and then you're like, what? No, like, you're just, like, making up words. It's so weird. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's a weird phenomenon. What is that? That's such a weird... So it's kind of similar to the thing I was saying before, where it's like you're in that state, but because you're not reading out loud, your eyes just close. But then your mind just starts making up shit. It's exactly that same experience. But since my eyes are closed and it's going into a dream state, it's like a whole story's unfolding with like imagery and stuff. And then I realized like, oh shit, I was asleep. Okay, where was I? All right. And then 5 minutes later, it's happening again, And then eventually that happens, because I'm like, no, I'm going to keep reading. I want to keep reading. Yeah, I go through that like maybe 3 or 4 cycles, and then I'm like, fuck it. I'm not going to be able to get anything out of it at this point. I might as well just go to sleep now. And then what happens is I put the book down, I turn off the lights, and then I can't fall asleep for like 40 minutes. I'm like, what the fuck? And now I can't sleep. What the hell? But I don't want to just leave the light on because I know it'll wake me up later. So it's like a weird thing because I'm like not actually sleepy. It's so strange. I guarantee you somebody's already done research on all this shit. See, it's not a stress thing, what I'm talking about here. Because I have a regular sleep schedule. I don't look at my phone usually for probably an hour before I go to bed. Generally speaking, like even now when I finish the live stream, I usually go over and hang out for a little bit and then I read a bunch. So I have a pretty good sleep schedule. So it's not a stress thing that's going on there. Let me see if let's see. Here we go. The AI knows what I'm talking about. Hypnagogic imagery while reading occurs when the brain slips into a light, dreamlike state, stage 1 sleep, while drowsy, causing hallucinations to blend with the text. This frequently involves bright, shifting visuals or hearing voices which make the reader feel like they are dreaming the book's contents or seeing imagery in place of words. Oh, we found it. Yeah, exactly. And then at a certain point you go like, wait, this isn't right. And then you kind of like wake up. Reading with eyes closed. Exactly. A common experience is realizing you have been reading with eyes closed, having fully transitioned into a dream state. Interesting. Many use this state for creative inspiration as it brings in vivid imagery. Yeah, the problem is I can't remember a fucking thing that happens during it. So it's not helping me at all. Oh, I'm glad it's typically harmless. Wait, why does it say typically? Typically harmless? Is there something I need to know? If I'm being honest, though, I kind of like it. I kind of like that, falling asleep to reading a book thing. So if I don't sit with my book like this. Generally, I have like pillows propped up so like I can like kind of rest the book, and I'm like laying on my side like reading, so it's like easier just to go into that. But I'm not trying to get into the state of having the imagery. I'm just trying to support myself to fall asleep. Dozing off while reading and having a short dream of new words on the page. Have you experienced this? You're reading a book in a comfy chair or bed, so engrossed, and suddenly you doze off, but you're still reading now in a flash dream. Flash dream? That's interesting. The words feel real and the story progression feels authentic. Then you wake up and realize you haven't read that page at all, and that page transpired in your dream. You were taken aback by how real the prose was. Yeah, exactly. Used to happen all the time when I read myself to sleep every night. I have a recurring dream. Maybe you guys will relate to this. Tell me if you have any recurring dreams after I tell you this story, right? So it's like variations on a basic theme of a dream that I've had for a long time. And it doesn't happen every night, but every time it does happen, I always remember it. So I don't usually remember everything I dream about unless it's particularly vivid. Then I might remember it in the morning and then I forget about it. But like this dream, it always sticks with me when I have one of these dreams. And it's always a dream where I'm either in high school or college, typically, is the format of the dream. And it usually, lately it's more revolved around this weird experience of like being in school and like one version of it that I don't really have much anymore is I'm back at college at the Air Force Academy. And then I've realized, oh my God, I'm in my third year and now I can't leave. Because like at the Air Force Academy, after 2 years, you have to decide to commit. And that was when I made the decision, no, I'm not fucking doing this. But if I had stayed for the third year and committed, then it's like you're kind of locked in. So you either have to, if you get out, you either have to pay it all back, the scholarship, or you have to serve in the military enlisted, or you have to continue through and become an officer. So I always have this dream that I'm like back there and it's like I'm a senior, or, it's like I'm basically at the end and I'm like, oh shit. But then also in my dream, I realize I have a wife and kids and I'm like, damn, I'm going to be in the military and I'm probably never going to get to see them. And then they're going to have to travel with me. And like, it's all this, just this kind of weird fucking, like I'm trapped in this fucking situation kind of dream. But then later, I don't have that dreams really that much anymore, but I still have dreams of being back in school, like high school or college. And I had one recently. Actually, it was like maybe last night or 2 nights ago. And they kind of more tend to revolve around, I mean, there's a lot to it, but the kind of thing that always stands out is like it's like I'm finding out that I was supposed to have studied a bunch of information, and now I'm like, what was the information I was supposed to know? It's kind of like that experience of like you have final exams, you don't know anything. And but it's not necessarily a negative experience when I have these dreams. It's kind of weird. It's hard to explain. It's more like, it's like I'm waking up, not waking up. I mean, I'm in my dream. I'm like, my dream starts and I'm like realizing I'm in school and I'm like, oh, what am I supposed to be learning here? And then I'm trying to figure that out, and it's always usually really hard to figure out. Like I have to go to like some counselor or admissions office and figure out like what classes am I taking. I don't even know what classes I'm taking, right? And I have to go figure it out, and there's always some difficulty in getting the information. It's really weird. And one of them, I remember one of them recently was like, not recently, but one of the recent versions of it was I had to get into my locker, but I couldn't remember the passcode, you know, like the combination for the locker, but it was like supposed to be from the previous year. And it was like, well, how the fuck am I supposed to remember that? Isn't that weird? Like, do you guys ever have dreams like that? Like, they're just these weird recurring dreams that always have sort of like a similar kind of theme to it. I think I just got really traumatized by being in school. You know, and the thing is, like, I know I'm smart enough to do well in school. Like, and when I applied myself, I did well. But it's like I also didn't want to be there. You know? And it's not like I had somewhere better to be. You know, like I was going to, like, oh, you're holding me back from all this creativity I'm doing over here. Like, no, I wasn't doing anything particularly creative with my time otherwise. But it was just the experience of, like, I have to sit here. I have to read these books you're telling me to read. But then even if, you know, like, you know, I wouldn't want to go back and be in school. But if I was back in time and I had the vocabulary I have now and I had to be in school, like I had no choice, I'd be like, I probably still wouldn't like it. But, you know, I mean, imagine like we're studying the Constitution. Now I'd be like, I'm going to read this fucking thing and I'm going to research like who is Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson. Like I'd want to, that's kind of like what I'm doing now. Like I'm just, now I can read whatever the fuck I want and I can explore whatever I want. But it's like when you're in that structure of school, you don't realize you can do that. It's like, because there's so much of a time limit, you have to do homework, all this other stuff. Like your whole life is so structured and managed, and it's not really coming from you. So it ends up being like, I'm just speaking from my experience. It ends up being something that I just didn't really want to fully put myself into. There was a few classes that I really enjoyed. Like in high school, I always enjoyed my philosophy classes and my religion classes. Those are my two favorite ones. Like even all of like because I went to a private Catholic school for high school, and we had every semester we had to take a specific course on Catholic religion. One year it was just reading the entire Bible. One year it was called like Catholic morality. And it was just all of the morality within Catholicism. That was the whole course. And I loved it. Like, it was so interesting. One year it was like the history of the Catholic Church and like all of that. And it was super fascinating. And it was always seemed like those teachers actually were more interested in what they were teaching than most of my other teachers. But what's interesting is like, I did not like literature class. And it's funny because, man, if the school had wanted to reach somebody like me, they would have just made a science fiction literature class. And like, I probably would have been totally captivated by that. Sandro, I'm just reading the chat. Yeah, that's not a dream. The mower's broken. No, that's just called a recurring reality. Is it, are you joking? Mito red light reading lights? Is that a real thing? That's not the thing I was talking about. Okay. Oh, I just realized I was reading this Reddit thread and you guys couldn't see it. I'm going to end the stream soon, but I just want to check on something real quick before we go. Lucid dreaming headset. Because I know I saw something about this. Of course, maybe it was a dream. Is it this one? No, because I don't think it was actually released yet, the one I'm thinking of. January. Halo. 2 years ago. This was like recently. Of course, it might have been an old thing that people were just for some reason promoting now. January 2024. Halo. What's that one? Maybe that's the one I'm... Oop. Is there a device that can make you dream? Lucid dream? Prophetic halo using ultrasound. I feel like that's the one I saw. Why is that page not loading? Welcome to the future. Yeah, I think this is the one I saw. Dreams will never be the same. Prophetic. Oh yeah, this is definitely it. Because when I saw it was called a duel, I was like, come on, Greg Egan, Jewel. No thanks. What is the difference? The phase retails for $12.99. 100x cost reduction. Well, then why is it more expensive? Two designs is the phase. The difference between the designs. It's a more capable system because the ultrasound can be spatially controlled. What does ultrasound have to do with anything? Gives you more control over your prefrontal activity and in turn your dreams. Okay, let's check this out. This is weird.
Imagine experiencing one of the most profound states of consciousness a human can achieve. Lucid.
Honestly, being awake is the most profound, but okay, I get your point.
Dreaming. During a regular dream, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, or DLPFC, which is responsible for higher order functions like decision-making, self-awareness, or logical thinking, is largely dormant. But in a lucid dream, the DLPFC comes alive, unlocking heightened self-awareness and sharp reasoning that allow you to take control of your dream world. Transcranial focused ultrasound, or TFUS, is an emerging non-invasive neuromodulation technology that can precisely activate neural circuits. It works by directing low-intensity ultrasonic energy through the skull to safely modulate neuronal activity. This precision is crucial, especially given the DLPFC's role in lucid dreaming. By carefully controlling stimulation parameters, TFUS can trigger the DLPFC during REM sleep, creating ideal conditions for lucidity. Furthermore, by using a multi-element phase array and carefully timed activation sequences, the ultrasonic beam can target neurons within a spatial range and correct for skull differences. Lucid dreaming is a rare treasure, a phenomenon that most people only encounter once or twice in a lifetime. Prophetic is here to change that.
I mean, honestly, if you really want to lucid dream, just learn how to do. I mean, I'm not promoting that you do it. I'm just saying, like, don't blast your brain with ultrasound. That does not seem like a good idea. Does it? Does it sound like a good idea? Blast your brain with ultrasound technology? With no stimulation versus stimulation. Dude, this is weird. What do you want to bet this is some kind of government shit? Something very weird about that. Have you ever seen the movie Vanilla Sky? It's got Tom Cruise and what's that little Spanish lady? What is her name? Open your eyes. That's a weird, trippy movie. I remember I really liked this movie when I was younger, and I thought it was so good. And then I told Katie, I was like, you gotta watch this movie, and she watched it with me, and I was like, dude, this movie sucks. It's weird. Penelope Cruz, yeah. She was like in the original one, which was called Open Your Eyes. He's the owner of a large publishing company, and basically he gets into a car crash. He can't repair his face, so he has to wear a prosthetic mask. It looks really weird. And then yeah, it's like about life extension. Well, I don't want to spoil it. You might want to watch it. Katie says it sucked. I don't know, man. Like, okay, so they get to this club. They get into an argument. He passes out. She apologizes to him after, because it's an argument. They have a relationship. Surgeons find a way to repair his face. Then he's plagued by bizarre experiences, such as brief flashbacks of his disfigurement, and an encounter with a mysterious man at a bar who informs him that David is omnipotent, demonstrated by the entire bar falling silent at David's command. One day he wakes up to find himself in bed with Julie, whose face has replaced Sophia's. I guess that's like his old girlfriend, and then he like suffocates her. Then he goes to prison, and then his facial disfigurement is restored. So now he's having to talk to a psychologist. They help him recall the name Life Extension. And there's a company that uses life extension to induce a lucid dreaming state. And then I guess basically it turns out he's been dreaming the whole time. So, spoiler alert. Yeah, Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Okay, Sandra says it's trash too. Yeah, alright. Alright, it probably was trash. What do you think about Primer, though? Primer was good, right, guys? Right? Like, Primer's not trash, right? Like, Primer's really good, right? Okay. Katie, do you remember that movie Time Crimes? That was cool. Time Crimes. What else? I just like time travel. I don't know why. What it is about it. I was just somehow impulsed with that when I was very young, probably. I always like movies about time travel. And books about time travel. The Accidental Time Machine. That's a really good book. Replay. It's not about time travel like a time travel machine, but it's still about time travel from a certain perspective. I'm trying to think what else. Recursion. It's kind of time travel-ish. And what was that other one by him? By Blake Crouch. Recursion and Dark Matter. It's I think they're both kind of time travel-ish. One of them is explicitly time travel. The other one's kind of adjacent to it. Inception. Yeah, I don't know. Like, maybe I'd have to watch it again. Oh, you know what's kind of similar to Inception? That I liked this movie. I don't know if I would like it now, but What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams. It's super dark, though. It's like super dark. What Dreams May Come was pretty interesting, though. I don't think it's about time travel, though. It's more like about him going into like an unconscious state. Time Cops? Time Cops. What is Time Cops? Time Cop? Do you think I said Time Cops? Wait, Katie liked Time Cop? Or are you talking about What Dreams May Come? The chat is probably delayed, so you guys are like... no, Time Crimes, not Time Cops. We're doing the crimes, not the cops. Time Crimes. Yeah, look at that. Doesn't that just look weird? It's one of those sci-fi... It's similar to Primer. I'll put it that way. Like, in the sense of, like, you're seeing somebody, but it's, like, part of the time loop and you don't realize it kind of a thing. Like, it's definitely kind of weird. It makes it look creepy as hell. What Dreams May Come, yeah. What Dreams May Come was interesting. Time Crimes. Spanish movie. Yeah, I think it was, like, all in Spanish. Hector scans the forest behind their house with binoculars and sees a young woman take off her t-shirt, exposing her breasts. I mean, what else do you need, guys? Like, there you go. Why? Spoiler alert. Sorry, I spoiled it. I don't remember that part. I don't know why I don't remember that part, but all right. Okay. I think I'll end it at that for tonight because I gotta go hallucinate a book, guys. I got some books to hallucinate. Now, I'm gonna read some more of this. Like, I really like Jason Giorgiani's books, although I think he's kind of insane. But I'm also reading Damon. Still haven't gotten to the good part yet. I'm still like super early into it. So, but you know, I trust Katie vis-a-vis Drake that I should read it. So I'm going to read that. And then I'm also reading Olympus, which if you haven't read Ilium and Olympus, like they're really good. Although in Olympus, I'm still at the part where it's like not really getting into it yet. And I'm just kind of like, all right, something's coming here. But yeah, those books are good. But again, Olympus, Ilium, no spoilers, but it's all about like Greek gods and how can I say it without spoiling it? It's about Greek gods / the backdrop of like future not time travel. Well, time travel, I guess. I don't know actually. Probably not time travel, but maybe. Post-humanity, that kind of shit. I guess technically like aliens in a certain sense. And I'm bringing that up because those things about General McCaskill, and they were talking about you should study the Greek mythology. So I'm like, what the fuck, dude? Okay. Greek mythology is all about the Greek gods. NASA names all their shit after Greek gods. Like, why? Why do they do that? What the hell does Greek gods... I mean, look, I could tell you... I don't want to spoil Ilium, but I'm just saying if you read that, then it's like, well, that's why. But that's a science fiction novel. What does that have to do with, like, in reality, why NASA is obsessed with Greek gods? Unless, like Nick Land was saying about sci-fi, techno-capital AI from the future is using science fiction to manipulate reality to pull it toward itself. That's a very sci-fi idea. Yeah, maybe we should stop just following a program, because none of these books ever end in a way that is good. So, like, show me one actually utopian sci-fi novel. I have yet to see one. People will say, well, that would be boring. Okay, well, is that what you want? There's this whole theory, I forget what it's called, but it's like this idea that whatever's the most entertaining outcome is always the thing that happens in reality. I don't know what the name of that is, but it's like, I think Elon Musk kind of subscribes to that. Okay. Katie tells me to finish the job too. Finish the job? Okay. I'll finish the job. Oh, did you mean Job? I don't know if I'm going to finish that book. We'll see. Job, a comedy of... What is it? A Comedy of Justice by Richard... or Heinlein. What's his first name? Richard? Why can't I remember his name right now? Something Heinlein. Anyways, all right. I think it's time, guys. I'm getting tired. I need to go hallucinate some more books. So I'll see you next time. See you tomorrow night. In the meantime, have fun and fall asleep reading some sci-fi. Good night, everybody.